So when I started at Court TV, my first big case, first big trial was Dr. Dirk Greineder. Dr. Dirk Greineder, a Harvard-educated doctor living up in the leafy suburbs of Massachusetts. And he and his wife, Mabel had just gone through her lady times, right? But Dr. Dirk was addicted.
Wait, I'm sorry. Is that a medical term? Is that a medical term?
Oh,
lady times?
Yeah, the children grew up. Mabel was a little bit older.
That kind of lady time.
Yeah, so she was going through her lady times, her change.
The monthly lady time.
This doctor's name is Dirk Diggler. Is that
Dirk Greineder. But so
that was my porn name.
Yeah. This is right around the turn of the century, and the internet is still relatively young, but being Harvard educated, he was very good online in seeking out prostitutes and pornography.
I'm sorry, just for the purposes of the audience, what century are we talking about?
The turn of the century, the most recent turn of the century that we have.
Well, see, now be specific, because, I was thinking 1900s.
No.
When you started.
Oh, the turn of the century, so like 99 to 2000, 2001. And he's very prolific on the internet. And he would spend a lot of time in chat rooms, hooking up with escorts, and also finding pictures of women not wearing a lot of clothes. And actually, his online name was Casual Guy 2000.
Wow. Okay.
So anyway, he was engaging in a lot of extramarital activities. But one day he went for a walk with his wife in the woods, and his story is that they had a big German Shepherd. He was German, and kind of turned his ankle in the woods, and he sat down, or was it that maybe it was she that rolled her ankle in the woods. This is the story. It's all made up. So they get separated.
You're making this up?
No. He made it up.
Oh.
Because he murdered her. Okay.
Oh. Wait, what was his screen name? Carlos Danger? Is that what it was?
No. Casual Guy 2000.
Okay.
Casual Guy 2000. So they according to the doctor, they get split up in this walk in the woods. And then when he comes back to find her, or she comes back to find him, I think she may have rolled her ankle. He goes and continues walking with the dog. And when he comes back, she's dead, bludgeoned in the woods. Calls 911 frantically, and unfortunately, she's dead. But unfortunate for the doctor, they investigate the scene, and they find that the murderer took his gloves and the murder weapon, the hammer. And
wait a minute, he had two gloves?
Yes.
So he couldn't have been a one-armed man?
No, it was not the one-armed man.
Oh.
There were two bloody gloves that were found nearby in this area in a like a sewer, and the murder weapon as well. So they investigate, and they find this photo of Dr. Greineder, who had a pair of glasses, but they're like the glasses where you have the little connector behind so you can put them around your neck.
Ooh, that is casual.
Yeah. So they have a photo. They don't have the actual glasses, but they have a photo of the glasses. And on the front of the glasses, they see this bloody print with these little dimples on it, like a dimpled red mark on the glasses. Those gloves that were found were gloves that had little dimples on them.
For gripping?
Yes, to like grip. They're like regular gloves you could find in any sort of hardware store, but they have the little dimples on them, and he had these dimpled red marks on his glasses, and they were able to put two and two together. They also, again, this is the turn of the century, Al, so we're early on in the days of DNA. and they were able to put together some DNA evidence of her blood on his shorts.
Has William McKinley been assassinated yet?
Yes.
William McKinley was assassinated?
Yes.
Wait, breaking news.
Whenever I hear turn of the century, I just go back to the William McKinley assassination.
But we had our own turn of the century, Al. Why is it that the turn of the century has to be the prior turn of the century? I mean, we had a turn of the century. Do you not remember Y2K?
Well, that's back in the days when we had a president with girth. That's what I used to like.
Y2K, Chris Jericho's gimmick in the WWE.
Y2K?
Well, it was Y2J, I guess.
So you're going to love this, Al. So Dr. Dirk Greineder gets accused of the murder, and I'm covering the trial, and it's in a very historic courtroom in Dedham, Massachusetts. Do you know why? Do you know why it's historic, Al?
Is that Dedham, Massachusetts? Well, it's not the witch trials. You covered those too, if I'm not mistaken, right, Salem?
Dedham, Massachusetts.
You got me on that one.
Courtroom. And by the way, we're in the middle of a heat wave, and this is an historic courtroom, so they could not put air conditioning in it.
So show is hot, man.
So I mean, it is super hot inside.
Oh, is it what you call it? The Scopes monkey trial?
No.
They put a monkey on trial?
I'll give you a clue, Al.
Stockholm Vincetti?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say that, but I was like, you know what? I knew that I stayed in the hotel that was their prison. So, I mean...
These two Italian Americans were tried in cages. In cages.
Yes.
It's outrageous. Now they can't even wear an orange jumpsuit, but back in the day, we put them in cages, Jonesy.
Why'd they put them in cages?
Well, they were Italians.
Oh. That makes sense. So fill me in. I seem to vaguely recall this, but what were those two gentlemen accused of, the two caged Italians?
They were anarchists.
Uh-huh.
Alleged
anarchists. It was very, very popular back in those days. At the turn of the century, okay, that during the labor movements of the late 1800s, early 1900s, there were, anarchists were very, very popular. And they were against government, against all different types of things. And they were bombing places, killing capitalists, things along those lines. Very, very troubled times in places like Patterson and, any place where there was a large number of factories. You found that the labor movement was being generated. And of course, the, FBI and all the other organizations were afraid that this was a way of overturning the government. So,
hey, Vinny, how do I say anarchist in Italian?
I don't know.
Stacco and Vincetti. That's the Italian word for it.
They were wrongfully accused.
Well, I don't know if they were wrongfully
It's not a fair trial, Al.
They didn't get a fair trial. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know if they were necessarily wrongfully accused. I mean, I could go either way on that. But it was a very, very, they were looking, anyone who was an immigrant was being looked at by the FBI and by the police as being rebel rousers and troublemakers and things along those lines.
This was a state trial, wasn't a federal case. It was not a federal case. This was a state case.
But I'm just saying that at that point in time, what they were doing was that you had. I mean, that's how the FBI really got started. Was getting involved in that labor movement, particularly in New Jersey, because there were bombings going on and there were killings going on and things along those lines.
Yeah.
So J. Edgar Hoover, I mean, makes his bones with the fact that he was the subject of it and foiled a bombing plot, and then that's started his rise in the FBI.
All dealing with wear dresses.
In fact, it was an anarchist that murdered President Garfield.
President who?
Garfield, James Garfield.
I prefer Heathcliff myself.
Heathcliff? Oh.
Garfield, Heathcliff.
Well, Garfield was a Civil War hero who was killed by Leon Clausewitz. No, I'm sorry. McKinley was killed by Leon Clausewitz, who was an anarchist. So McKinley was the one that was.
Let's get back to
Garfield was killed by Charles Guiteau, who was a dissatisfied office seeker, and that's why he killed the president.
All right. I should go out Jeopardy.
Garfield, by the way, dies on the Jersey Shore. You've probably been in either did he
go on that dangerous ride down there at Seaside Heights before they were able to sort of monitor these water slides?
He went on a dangerous ride, and basically they felt that the salt air might help him recover, and as a result of that, the air conditioning actually was born, because they had set up a situation with fans and ice blocks so they could cool the room for him. And also Alexander Graham Bell came in with a device to find the bullet in James Garfield. And, and
then saltwater taffy. And that's how,
and then Alexander Graham Bell's assistant, Alexander Graham Belkowski, invented the first telephone pole.
That at the end, he's making stuff up. So,
well, I made that. That's made up. That's not true. But it's true that they did have a device to try to find the bullet that was developed by Alexander Graham Bell,
like a metal detector.
It was a metal detector. It was.
You ever have a metal detector on the beach down at the Jersey Shore, Jonesy? Because I did.
I had a metal detector. I went out there like one afternoon, I think, and never returned. But I see guys out there, and they like to come after storms because that's when things get blown up.
Yes,
and they do claim to find valuables.
Exactly. So let's flash forward to the most recent turn of the century and this incredible trial in Dedham, Massachusetts. Did you know that in many courtrooms in the state of Massachusetts, when a witness takes the stand, they actually stand?
And yes, that's a Commonwealth. So that's why.
Oh.
Really? So it's a Commonwealth thing. So they do it in Pennsylvania too.
The Commonwealth states they have changed that, but in the jurisprudential history of the United States, the Commonwealths always had the person stand.
Would they change that rule for mafia trials for the little old guys in their wheelchairs and such? I mean, they must make an exception, right?
Well, well, of course. I mean, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, they actually started putting chairs in most of these courtrooms anyway.
Well, Dirk Greineder did not sit. He stood in that courtroom. And I mentioned we're in the midst of a horrific heat wave in Massachusetts, and there's no air conditioning. So he's on cross-examination during the afternoon when the temperatures in that courtroom are rising to the high 80s into the 90s. And he's lying through his teeth, and the sweat is just dripping down. No criminal defendant has ever looked more guilty than Dirk Greineder did on that afternoon of cross-examination as he got caught in a tangled web of lies.
And that's an interesting point that you bring that up, because that's one of the things that you're supposed to be looking at, as you're assessing whether or not they're telling the truth, how they answer the questions. If it's that uncomfortable, why wouldn't the defense attorney said, listen, you know what? It's too uncomfortable to testify right now.
He stood it. He got caught in some lies. I've never seen a defendant look more guilty. And the jury, when they got the case, it was in the beginning of the week. And we thought, well, it was like a 6-week trial. So there was a lot of evidence, a lot of it having to do with the DNA, because it was old-fashioned DNA evidence where you had to explain to the jury what DNA was. So that took some time. But the jury deliberated day after day after day. until we hit Friday. And Court TV, Friday is verdict day.
Verdict day. Yeah.
That morning, this jury, during the course of the trial, because it was so hot, had been coming to court in shorts and T-shirts because of the incredible heat. And on that Friday morning, they were all dressed up. And it's a very small courthouse, but there's some nice steps that go into the courthouse. There's only one courtroom in that courthouse, very historic, as I mentioned. And there they were, before they go in to deliberate, they were all posing for pictures. And this is before the day of cell phones where everyone has one. So someone had to bring a camera to court, and I don't know, someone was taking the pictures, and I'm thinking, today's the day. Today's the day. And it was the day, and it was a dramatic verdict. I remember being in the courtroom with a microphone, giving the play-by-play, waiting for the judge to take the stand. And I remember that moment before the verdict where you hear this boom, and all the heads turn to the back of the courtroom, and they bring in Dirk Greineder to hear what the jury has to say. And it was guilty. Even more dramatic than the moment that they found him guilty inside the courtroom was shortly thereafter, as he is found guilty and quickly sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. We run, and our cameras are running to the back of the courthouse as he comes down those steps. There's a woman with her baby screaming at Dirk Greineder, "What? Chipna! What? Chipna! What? Chipna!" And we caught it all live as it happened right there on Court TV. What a day.
You paint such a great word picture of that. Have you ever considered a career in radio?
I had one for a short while, Mr. Jonesy, with you, of course, on Sirius. But anyway, that was it. And that was the case. And it was a incredible, incredible moment. And I love covering trials in Massachusetts.
Do they do things? Are there other ways of manipulating a defendant's appearance in court? It seems to me that they probably put him on in the afternoon so that he would sweat, right? Are there other techniques?
It's not up to them. I mean, it's defense counsel puts their witness on. The state can't call you to the stand in a criminal trial because you have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination.
Oh, so it wasn't a manipulation by the prosecution; it was the defense.
No, that's why I questioned.
Right, that's why you said that.
I was defense counsel. I would have said, "Listen, it's too hot, and it's not going to be fair. He's not going to be able to look, composed because he's probably wearing a suit and a tie and a jacket and everything else. So it's a very uncomfortable situation. I mean, judges, whenever they air conditioning breaks, and especially in Bergen County, and Vinny did cases in Bergen County. A lot of those courtrooms don't have central air, so they have units in the window, and those units make a lot of noise. And during a trial, it's very hard for the jury to hear because generally the jury could be right situated near the window where there is an air conditioning unit, and it's making noise. And we as defense counsel or we as plaintiff's counsel or whatever are going to say, "Listen, Judge, can we turn that off?" Because we're afraid the jury's not going to hear what's going on. And then the room gets just unbearably hot. And sometimes the judge will be like, "You know what, gentlemen, you can take off your jackets, you can roll up your sleeves. We're not going to be formal here, unloosen your tie." And, we go forward, it looks like something out of Inherit the Wind. But, it is very...
That's what it was like. And I'm telling you, I was sweating in that courtroom because I wore a shirt, but I was rolling up the sleeves, loosening the tie. Then I'd have
to... You wore a shirt? Were you going to go shirtless?
No, like a dress shirt, long sleeves. And then I was sweating, and I had to be wary of what's going on under there. Because I got to go out and do the live shot. Now, here's the part with the live shot that was crazy as well. So when you set up a live shot on television, you always want to have like that courthouse in the background. The courthouse was beautiful, but it was white. And the sun was bouncing off of it. And I'm situated in front of it. So now you've got to The background is very bright. So now I've got to be bright. So they're cranking the light on me like this. And I have a guest with me. And he's like, Vinny, I don't know how you keep your eyes open. I got a squint here. And it's just too bright.
I think it was Gilbert Godfrey was your guest. So that worked out very well.
Unbelievable.
I felt he was guilty from the moment I saw him and when he was sweating. The man was guilty. Now, what did you ask me?
And I'll go right from there.
There you go. So that's the story of the Harvard doctor who was convicted and is serving life without the possibility of parole. Saying goodbye, Jonesy.
Goodbye, Jonesy.